Okay, so today we're going to have a look at typically what happens when we try and write some code. What we've done here is we've got a specification for some code that we write, that we're required to write. We're working as a part of a team. The other guys are off writing the actual game, and they've asked us to write the handler for the end of the game. So when the program gets to our part of the game will be over. We'll have the user's name and a score that they achieved during the game. And what we need to do is find some way to handle that information. If they got greater than 100 in the score, they get 10 bonus points. So we need to let them know that and give them the new result. If they didn't get more than 100, so obviously they didn't get a bonus, we need to point that out to them and say that they need to work a bit harder or something like that, and how many points they were short of gaining the extra bonus points. So obviously 100 minus whatever score they got. So let's have a look typically at how you might go about trying to solve something like this. So remember, our starting point is we know the player's name and the score, and really we're just looking at doing something with the score. If it's bigger than 100, adding 10 points, and printing something if it's less than 100, doing a bit of a calculation and giving some information. So let's have a look typically at how you might tackle something like that. Now notice I'm using the word typically here, because this is not ultimately how we want you to do it, but let's just kind of go through the process that quite often happens. So we're just going to start for a new file here. We're going to know that we start with the name of somebody, so we're going to have name one being somebody like Joe, and Joe has got a score, so score 1, because that's Joe's score, is let's say 120. So this is kind of our starting point here. So we assume that kind of what's gone on before here is part of another part of the program, and we are kind of starting our code here. So we've just set these dummy variables so our code can work. So what do we have to do? Well, first of all, we needed to look at the score. So we need to do something like if score is bigger than 100. Well, we know that they got a bonus of 10 points for that. So if the score was bigger than 100, we can print you got a score, you got a good score, a score over 100, and are okay for a bonus. That's pretty straightforward. And obviously we can now add 10 to the score, so score is assigned score plus 10, and we can print your score was. Okay, so there's our basic conditional statement if they got more than 100. If they got less than that, so we know we need to do an else command. What are we going to do? We're going to print try harder next time. Try harder, you didn't make the bonus. And so we need to work out well, I'm not going to use score again, or maybe I am, so difference I'll call it. I'll call it diff. Difference is 100 minus score, and print you needed diff to get a bonus. Okay, so there's our basic program. Let's just run this and see if it works. I'm sure I've made some mistakes in there, I normally do. I'm just going to save it on the desktop as a untitled one. I'll call it temp for the moment. Oh, score is not defined. Oh, it's called it score 1. There you go. You're making a mistake straight off. So that was score 1. to be score 1 down there. Okay, so I hope that was my only mistake. Oh, score is not defined. What happened there? Ah, didn't test it there either. Okay, so 100, yeah, you got a bonus. Score was 130, so that worked. If we change the score to 90, we should run that. Yeah, okay, so it worked. Great. Amazingly sophisticated bit of code. And then you kind of think, okay, so it's worked for one person. I need it to work for somebody else. So you take all your code, you copy it, and now we need to see if it works for somebody else. So Susan, who got so Joe got 90 and Susan got 130, so we can run that. Yeah, try harder, score 100. Obviously we didn't put their name in there, so that's something I probably should have done. So at the start of it here I needed to say name 1. You got a score, and here I need to do name 1 again, and I need to put it down the bottom as well. Okay, so run that and just check that the names all work. So Joe tried, you didn't make the bonus. Susan, you got 100 and you're okay, and your score was. Okay, so that worked. And then you look at your code and you think, yeah, you know what? Hang on a minute, I'm doing the same thing kind of up here to do with this printing stuff, and down here to do with this printing stuff. It's obviously the same code in 2 blocks, and you go, oh gosh, yeah, I remember there's something called functions that I could probably use. So you think, okay, so let me think now. What do I do? Oh yeah, so I just need to put this code here in a function. So we'll call it print score or something. Print score. Oh, sorry. Print score. And I'll do that. So all of this now is in my print score, so I know I've got it indented all. Okay, so I'm now creating my function, which means up here, rather than do all this kind of gumph up here, I can just call my print score, because that'll go away and do all of that, and then I'll change name 1 and score 1 for somebody else. And I'll put that in there. So you kind of started writing the code, and then after you've kind of written it and hacked it a bit, you thought, oh god, yeah, I better make some functions in here because I know that's what I'm meant to do. So you now go and create this function. Well, it looks a bit tidier anyway. At least we've only got this one print score now, and we can see we're calling it twice here. So what do you do now? You go and think, yep, suss that one out. Let's go and run that. And oh dear, print score's not defined. So you look at it, you scratch your head for quite a while, you can't work out what's going on. And then you have this flash of inspiration that, oh, of course, yes, Python is an interpreted language. So we come down here, we do these assignments, and then we try and call the function print score. Well, we haven't seen the function print score yet, so how could it run print score up here? And then it kind of dawns on you, oh yeah, gosh, when we do functions, we generally create a main function. So now you go and create yourself a main function, and you put your code in here, and knowing it's all got to be indented. So we create our main function, because everything goes in main. And then you may or may not at this point remember, actually I've got to run the main function, and where do I put that? I always put that at the end. So at least now we know it's going to come down here, it's going to define the main function, it's going to define the print score function, then it's going to start running things. And by the time it actually runs things down here at the bottom, it'll have defined everything, which is why we always do it in that order. So now we run this program and we think, okay, hopefully at this point it'll work. Oh, I've got some invalid syntax in there. def main. Up there you go, going too quickly. I've even forgot my colon. Oh gosh, so more errors. So unbound local variable score1 reference before assignment. So I've got a score1 reference before I used it. Just looking at the code, where was that? It was on line 13 in this program. So I can click on here. I can just about see actually that is line 13 down the bottom. So score1's used here but hasn't been defined, but actually we set score1 up here. And then you think, oh gosh, yeah, what's all this local variable stuff? What was going on there? And you kind of go back over your notes and you think, oh gosh, of course, yeah, I remember now. I've actually got to pass the variables into functions, because up here in main, name and score1 are local to main. And this is a separate function called print score, so all the variables in print score will be local to print score. They might happen to have the same name, score1 and score1, but they're in separate functions, so they are different. And now what we're doing, obviously in print score, is we're trying to reference a variable called score1, and we haven't seen it yet. So you think, okay, yeah, I've got to go and do that. So, and then you think, well, hang on, score1, I've got kind of name 1 and name 2 up, name 1 and name 1. These are different people, so I really ought to call those name 2 and score 2, because they're different people. And this generic function here, print score, doesn't care whether it's person 1 or person 2, name 1 or name 2. This will just print a score for a particular person. So within my print score function, I don't care information I'm printing. I probably should just call them score. So I'm going to get rid of all my references to score here, to a particular score. This is now just a generic score. And similarly, I need to do the same with name. I've got name 1, so I'm just going to get rid of that as well. Now at this point, I hope you're ripping your hair out and thinking, what is he going on about? This is mad. Well, sadly, this is what many people do when they first start trying to program and tackle functional programming. They start like this and break things down. And I want you to get an idea of how your children that you're trying to teach might approach this, and how you can demonstrate to them that this is not the best way to do things, but you need to understand what they're doing and understand what's going on their mind as they're trying to solve a problem like this. So we've now got a generic score in here and a generic name, but we know that these are local to this function, but we've actually got the values that we want up here. So in main, I've got name 1 being Joe and score 1 being 90, and when I call the print score function, I want to pass in these two particular variables, whatever's in name 1 Joe and whatever's in score 190. So I actually put the variable names in here when I call the function. So name 1 score 1. So remembering now, it's not the actual variables themselves, so we don't pass name 1 and score 1. We pass the contents of these two variables. So now when we call the function print score, we pass the string Joe and we pass the number 90. So when we write the print score function definition, we know that two values are going to be passed to it, and we know the first one is a string, and locally within the function I want to refer to that as name, and then I know I'm going to be passed a number, and locally within the function I want to call that score. And then similarly down here, when we've got name 2 and score 2 for Susan, I now want to pass in name 2 and score 2. Obviously when we pass those into the function, it's the text Susan is passed in and the number 130 is passed in. Those are put into the local variables called name and score, and we run the function with those local variables. So this is a very good illustration of where we would use a function and we would have a separate name in the function for a variable and a different name in the bit that's calling it, because this is a generic function that for a given person with a given score does everything. Up here in main we've got specific people, person 1 and person 2. So let's see if all that works. Joe, try harder, you didn't make the bonus. Susan, you got a score of 100 and you're okay for a bonus, your score is 140. Fantastic. So we've written our first bit of code here, and and we're kind of quite happy with it really. Yep, it's got functions in, it's got mains in, we've passed parameters into print score, and well, it's not a bad start. So we're probably fairly happy at this point and think we've achieved what we needed to do. Okay, so if you've kind of got that, have a think about it, make sure you're completely happy with the code, and then come and watch the second video in this short series.